Sometimes people don't leave because they're angry. They don't disappear because they stopped caring. They vanish because they're changing, and evolution requires isolation. When a person begins to outgrow their old life, the noise becomes unbearable. The expectations, the small talk, the roles they were forced to play, it all starts to feel too tight, too fake, too heavy to carry into the next version of themselves. So they pull back, they go quiet. They stop answering messages, they stop showing up where they're expected. It's not rejection, it's recalibration. They're shedding the layers that were built for survival, not for peace. And sometimes, that process looks like distance. So psychologically, disappearing is a defense mechanism, not always against people, but against overstimulation. The brain, especially under emotional stress or transformation, seeks safety through retreat. It's like the mind saying, "I can't hear myself think anymore." When you're evolving, clarity becomes sacred, and silence is the only way to find it. But here's the part no one talks about. When you start to grow, your old environment begins to resist. Friends start taking your silence personally. Family starts accusing you of changing too much. They call you distant, cold, self-absorbed, not because you've become those things, but because your detachment exposes their stagnation. To evolve means to disturb. Your growth becomes a mirror, and not everyone can stand what it reflects. The psychology of disappearing runs deep. It's not avoidance, it's protection. Most people don't realize that major transformation feels like grief. You're mourning old identities, unlearning conditioned responses, then separating from the version of yourself that people are still attached to. The pressure to maintain that version feels suffocating. So you vanish. You stop explaining. You stop defending. You let your absence speak. And for a while, it feels lonely. The world thinks you're fading, but in reality, you're refining. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's construction. You're building a life that doesn't require constant justification, but the shift is psychological, too. When people evolve internally, their nervous system craves peace over presence. They start noticing how much energy it costs to maintain relationships built on history instead of resonance. They realize that connection without authenticity drains faster than solitude, and so they disappear, not to abandon, but to realign. The people who misunderstand this will think you've changed for the worse, but the ones who understand healing will recognize it instantly, because they've done it too. They know disappearing isn't running away, it's running toward clarity. And when you finally stop explaining yourself, that's when the evolution completes its first phase. Because growth isn't about proving you've changed, it's about not needing to prove it at all. Disappearing is not the end of a chapter, it's the silence between them. It's the space where the old self dies quietly, and the new one hasn't yet learned to speak. Most people don't understand this, because they've never had to confront who they are without the noise of others' expectations. But those who disappear are forced to. They face themselves without distraction, and that confrontation is both terrifying and necessary. When you're evolving, isolation isn't loneliness, it's purification. You begin to see which parts of you were real and which parts were performances. You realize how much of your personality was shaped by survival, smiling to avoid conflict, agreeing to feel accepted, shrinking to feel safe. The more self-aware you become, the harder it is to play those roles. So you withdraw not to disappear from the world, but to stop disappearing within it. Psychologically, this withdrawal represents a shift from external validation to internal restoration. The ego, which once depended on constant feedback to feel alive, starts losing its grip. That's why it feels so uncomfortable. You're detoxing from external noise, the praise, the criticism, the need to explain yourself. It's an identity withdrawal, and it burns. But beneath that discomfort, something powerful is forming. Trust. When people disappear during their evocation, they're not avoiding responsibility, they're learning emotional regulation. They're rebuilding their nervous system to exist in peace without mistaking it for isolation. They're learning to love themselves without applause. That's not detachment, that's mastery. But the dark side of this process is the guilt. The guilt of growing past people who don't understand the version of you that's emerging. You'll feel torn between wanting to honor who you were and needing to protect who you're becoming. And that guilt will whisper, you've abandoned them. But the truth is, you're not abandoning anyone. You're refusing to abandon yourself again. Some people disappear because they've realized how loud false connections can be. Because peace becomes impossible around those who only recognize your pain. They disappear because growth feels like betrayal to those who benefited from their smaller self. And yet, disappearing is an act of faith. You vanish, not knowing if the new version of you will fit back into the world. You risk being misunderstood, mislabeled, forgotten. But in that void, you find something far greater: authenticity. The kind that doesn't perform, doesn't seek, doesn't explain. It just is. Eventually, you'll reappear, quieter, sharper, lighter. You'll walk differently. You'll speak less, but say more. You'll outgrow the need to prove your transformation, because your peace will do it for you. And the same people who once thought your silence was weakness will see it for what it really was: rebirth. But there's a final truth about disappearing that few will understand. Sometimes you don't come back. Not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the vibration that kept you small. The version of you that used to belong in those rooms, those circles, those conversations, doesn't exist anymore. And that's okay. Disappearing isn't loss, it's renewal. It's your soul stepping out of the noise to remember its sound. It's your mind reclaiming focus. It's your spirit learning the difference between connection and attachment. When people say you've changed, what they really mean is that you stopped playing a role in their story. You're writing your own now, and not everyone was meant to be in this chapter. So if you've been disappearing lately, stop feeling guilty. Stop explaining. Stop apologizing. You're not lost. You're simply aligning. You're stepping into solitude, not because you're empty, but because you're finally full enough to be alone. And when you reemerge, you'll understand something profound. You never actually disappeared. You were there all along. You just stopped being available to anything that wasn't real.